Lunchtime indeed, Rich.
Get a hot and juicy Dave single for just $1 in the app. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. For those of you who have watched or listened to me through the years, you know I'm a former prosecutor. That's the way I see the world, but it also gives me insight into what prosecutors have to deal with. And sometimes when you're trying to prove a crime or a conspiracy, you know, more than one person getting together to commit that crime, you need some inside knowledge. And sometimes you need a criminal to testify for you. It's called a cooperating witness, but many times they're also referred to by another name, rats. Rats. That's the classic term used, and I think it really began in mob trials where you would have, you're trying to go after, you know, the mob boss or somebody high up on the chain, so the government or prosecutors have to get cooperation from somebody else who is in trouble and needs a way out. So they turn state's evidence in a state prosecution. They'll turn evidence for the government, for the assistant U.S. attorney who's trying the case. And inevitably, you know, from the other side, they look at these cooperating witnesses as rats who can't be trusted. And we saw what happened in many mob trials. Many mob trials. The people who were testifying, the so-called rats, were not necessarily believed. They were not credible. They were destroyed on cross-examination and in many times not reliable. And as prosecutors, you've got to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, but sometimes you need the help of the rats. We've seen it here on Court TV in some of the trials that we've covered. We saw it in the case of Curtis Wright. Do you remember Curtis Wright? He testified against his best friend, who was also his doppelganger. And Curtis Wright was the case of Dr. Teresa Severs, who was murdered. And he's the guy who actually did it, along with someone else. But he was called as a cooperating witness, because he struck a deal, as a cooperating witness to get the person who hired him, which was the doctor's husband. He didn't actually commit the crime himself. He didn't commit the murder himself, but he was part of the conspiracy for the murder, just as responsible, if not more responsible. But they needed the testimony of someone who was involved in the conspiracy. And that was Curtis Wright. And as a result of his testimony, which the jury believed and stood up in court, Mark Severs ended up on death row. And again, it was a case that there was no way for prosecutors to prove it without a cooperating witness. More recently, we've seen another case, the snake breeder case. You may recall this man, Michael Humphrey, who was there when Ben Rennick was shot and killed. And what wasn't clear in front of the jury was whether or not Michael Humphrey fired the weapon or Lynn Lee Rennick, the defendant on trial, fired that weapon. Well, Humphrey's the one who got the deal. So he ends up as a cooperating witness kind of after the fact, right? Because he had a trial, but then he cooperated afterwards. But again, this is someone who was destroyed on cross-examination. And as a result of what the defense was able to do to him, make him look like he was not telling the truth on the stand, or he tried to minimize his involvement and really, you know, separate himself from the crime and the shooting and everything else, jury, I don't think, was buying him 100%. As a result, the defendant in that case, Lynn Lee Rennick, she was convicted, but not of the top counts, and she is going to be free in her 40s after being convicted of the murder of her husband. And the only one who had a motive to kill her husband was her, not Michael Humphrey. But the jury did not like him. Now, let's get to the case that you're watching here on Court TV. Lorenzen Wright, the NBA star who was murdered. The star witness for prosecutors is one of these cooperating witnesses. His name is Jimmy Martin. He's the star. He's the star of the trial for prosecutors. He's the one with the inside knowledge. Without him, they can't prove the case. But the jury has to believe him. They've got to trust him. He has to have a certain level of credibility. And all of that gets tested on cross-examination. And today, Jimmy Martin, the star witness, was cross-examined. Let's take a look.
Do you have personal knowledge of anybody that has corroborated where you were that night?
No, sir.
And you've told the police at different points that you were at home that night, right?
Yeah,
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, your mother, along with you, helped to locate the names of certain people, right? Particularly the pregnant lady that you couldn't describe by name.
Yes, sir.
But she didn't corroborate the fact that you were at home that night, right?
Again, we're getting to other people's testimony.
His,
Ms. Perry, again, I'm just sustained objection as to what somebody else may have done. He can't testify to what somebody else may have done or did not do. You may proceed.
You said that night that you had Billy Turner's car, correct?
Yes, sir.
Today you're saying that. Do you remember giving a statement in 2017?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in 2017, prior to talking with the prosecutors, you didn't say that, did you?
No, sir. I don't know what you're referring to.
You don't remember telling detectives that Billy told you and Sheriff told you that the plan was that Lorenzen wouldn't know Billy's car and that Billy was on the scene that night in his car. You don't remember saying that?
No, sir. I don't know saying.
You don't remember that?
Perhaps one of the most relaxed convicted murderer witnesses I've ever seen on the witness stand. I mean, he's not sweating anything up there, but will this be enough? How exactly did he stand up? Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who is in Memphis, Tennessee tonight, joining us live from the courthouse. Okay, I'm interested, Chanley, in your takeaways from the cross-examination, because from my perspective as former prosecutor, like you're a former prosecutor, this is the star witness, the key witness. If they want to convict Billy Ray Turner, this jury needs to believe this man.
Right, they are almost hanging their hat on Jimmy Martin and spending the rest of their case in chief, calling witnesses to try to corroborate his story, because that was a scathing cross-examination with John Perry really trying to hold his feet to the fire from previous statements to police, Vinnie, with his current testimony on the stand. And of course, I'm in the courtroom, I'm watching the jury. They didn't take a lot of notes. I thought they would take more notes than that on the cross of his testimony. They weren't, but they were definitely paying attention. And even, of course, Jimmy Martin seemed a bit nervous as he swiveled in his chair almost constantly on cross-examination. But there were some key inconsistencies that the defense highlighted. Here are a few of those from his testimony. Of course, on the stand, he testified that he and Billy Ray Turner, the defendant, entered Lorenzen Wright's Atlanta condo together. So the defense spent time impeaching him on previous statements that he said only Turner went inside that condo and attempted to murder Lorenzen Wright. So that was a change, a discrepancy in his story, Vinnie. Another one had to do with his testimony where he said Martin said that he sold 2 guns that he found in the trunk of Billy Turner's car. So remember, Shira lets him drive the car. He finds some guns in the trunk. He testified that he sold 2 of them, but in a previous statement, he said that he gave back those guns. So that was another highlight. And then finally, he testified on the stand that Billy Turner was present for 2 of the meetings at Shira Wright's home to discuss this plot to murder Lorenzen Wright. But previous statements to police, he said that Turner was only present for 1 meeting, and he actually changed his testimony today on cross, saying that's correct. Billy Turner was only present at the very first brainstorming session with Claudia Robinson, Shira Wright, and of course the Jimmy Martin, the one testifying, and that Billy Ray Turner didn't have any agreement to this. He really didn't say anything. He was just present at the meeting, so that was a point for the defense. But I did catch up with Jimmy Martin's attorney after he left the stand. He said said that his client was relieved to finally have this off his chest, and it was nerve-wracking on cross-examination, but his attorney says that those inconsistencies are just outweighed by his consistent statements over the years. Vinny, let's take a listen.
As you can see in the redirect from the state, the main points have always been consistent throughout his stories. There are key facts that have been consistent. Some of the secondary facts have, again, been forgotten. Some have been remembered. Other times, certain questions would be asked that would cause for him to remember certain facts, and other times those questions weren't asked, and so they weren't presented.
Right. And he himself even clarified, well, that's not what he was exactly asked me on the stand. But what are those main consistent points that you think he's always been the same on over the years and in testimony?
So in his testimony today, the consistent facts were that he, Ms. Wright, along with Billy Turner, entered into a conspiracy to commit this murder of Mr. Wright. Those facts have always been consistent, that they had meetings, that they had agreements, that certain things took place to result in the murder. After that, there was some consistencies as far as where evidence was disposed of, where it was located, and had it not been for Mr. Jimmy Martin coming forward and talking to them, those key pieces of evidence would have never been discovered.
Another big point on cross, just to mention, was that Jimmy Martin doesn't have an alibi, even though he says that he was in Batesville, Mississippi. He was with people, getting rides from people that night of the murder, Vinny. None of those people came forward, so that was another moment during cross that this jury took note of.
Big moment there. Let me ask you, you also had an opportunity to speak with Lorenzen Wright's roommate from that condo. What did he tell you?
Michael Gibson, he actually testified this afternoon, like I said, to corroborate Jimmy Martin's story about being at the Atlanta condo. And Michael Gibson was the man asleep on the couch, the bald man that Jimmy Martin refers to. And so I caught up with him after he testified, and I wanted to ask him about when he realized that there was this break-in in his condo when he was asleep on the couch, and then what he was thinking and feeling in that moment when he found out that his life could have been taken. Let's watch.
I first found out through Lorenzen's mom. She called me and told me that, so then I Googled it and saw it online as well. I mean, I was terrified. I mean, imagine if I had been woke or had he been there, then I'd probably be dead. So, like I said, it was just a horrible experience.
And looking back, you had no idea that anyone had been in your condo.
No, I had no clue whatsoever. Like I said, not until his mom told us about it. Didn't know anything about it. I mean, that's shocking. I mean, just thinking about that, like I said, if I had to open my eyes and saw them, then who knows what would have been happening. Nothing good, I know.
Michael Gibson, Vinny, has known Lorenzen since third grade. They were best friends. He was living with him in Atlanta at the time. He said when Lorenzen went missing, he couldn't eat, he couldn't sleep, he had to take off of work. And then when he found out that his best friend had been found murdered, guess what? He immediately thought that his ex-wife, Shiver Wright, had something to do with it.
Wow. All right. Chanley Painter in Memphis tonight. Thank you so much. Let's bring in our think tank. We got a lot to talk about here. Joining us tonight in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, criminal defense attorney, civil rights attorney, Kecia Early. In Los Angeles, California, deputy public defender, Los Angeles County, Philip Dubé. And in Houston, Texas, criminal defense attorney, Brian Weiss. Great to see everyone. Ladies first. Sorry, guys. It's just, come on. Give me a break. Kecia, what are your thoughts about Jimmy Martin? Is this guy a cooperating witness, or will he be looked at more as an unreliable rat?
He's definitely that unreliable jailhouse snitch. He scares me as an attorney, and I know that this is going to flood over to the jury. He's too calm to be this convicted murderer, and his inconsistencies is definitely damaging and more helpful to the defense as opposed to the state. This is what makes a good attorney. You turn the prosecution witness into your witness on cross-examination. This is your time to poke holes in the testimony and to show that this witness is not reliable, is not credible. And again, it goes back to the jury instructions. The jury will be instructed that based on these inconsistencies, based on the impeachment, that they can take the testimony in its entirety or disregard it. So this was definitely helpful and a point for the defense.
All right, I'm going to ask Philip Dubé, but I'm just preface it by saying this is the most unpredictable part of the show, folks, because I never know what this guy's going to say. I literally never know what angle he's going to come at me from. But go ahead, Philip. Your thoughts about Jimmy Martin.
Well, first of all, anytime you get a snitch, there's an old expression we say, crimes conceived in hell don't have angels as witnesses. You know, that old adage. And the truth be told, every witness just about has warts and nuggets. And of course, this witness has warts, However, what will be coming in is a thread of text messages between him, Billy Ray, and the ex, Ms. Wright. 250 text messages clearly showing more than just, scheduling to get the lawn cut by Mr. Turner. He was the landscaper. More than just, arranging a time to pick up the check for cutting the grass. There was clearly some type of conspiracy going on because most people do not correspond that frequently in such a short period of time with their gardener. And when that comes in, I think it will corroborate this snitch's testimony. And again, he is a rat, he is a snitch, but sometimes that's what you need to get a little rough justice.
Brian Weiss, we've seen many, and I'm sure you've thought about all of the cooperating witnesses through the years that tried to prosecute mobsters, sometimes successful, sometimes not successful, but it becomes so much about them, and the focus gets shifted onto them, which I think is always good for the defense. When you're thinking about Jimmy Martin, you're not thinking about Billy Ray Turner.
Yeah, a couple of quick things. Number one, if, again, you can parade somebody into the well of the courtroom that this jury's going to hate more than your client, then, you may be a 15 or 14 seat, but you still have a chance. Look, like Philip said, if you want to prosecute the devil, you've got to walk through hell and find the devil's helpers. And I'm telling you, in 4+ decades of doing what I've done, I have seen countless prosecutors tell countless juries, you may not like this guy, but at the end of the day, we didn't pick him. That defendant picked him. And something else I really think that matters, we like to say kiddingly that snitches get stitches, but they also get the best deals because they have enough sense to recognize, again, Vinny, that once that ship starts sinking, what do the rats do? They jump off, they run to the courthouse, and they get an incredible deal, just like this thug.
Oh, he got it. I mean, he's serving time on another murder, not on this one, on another murder that he's involved with. I think the one chance, though, that the defense has here is that he is much more connected to Shera than he is to Billy Ray Turner, and that may be the angle they're going to play because he's the cousin. So we'll see. We'll see. Big day today. All right, they're with us the whole hour. Our think tank, KC Early, Philip Dubé, Brian Weiss. When we come back, yes, we're getting closer and closer to the trial of the Doomsday couple, Lori Vallow Daybell and Chad Daybell. At one point, they were inseparable, but now someone needs a little space. That's next.
Download Earnin.
Where are your kids?
No comment.
No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Where are your children? Yeah, why don't you just give us a comment? Just tell us where they are. Chad, where are Lori's kids? What happened to Tammy, Chad? Can you tell us what happened to Tammy? Why have you guys been in Hawaii for so long? Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What?
January 26, 2020, these lovebirds, these newlyweds were inseparable.
Did you do something to your children?
Holding hands, holding their bag of money, walking through the streets of Hawaii while Lori Vallow Daybell's children were missing, and we now know buried in Chad's backyard. Unbelievable. Well, things are changing between those two, at least as their criminal cases go, because right now it's one trial, right? It's one trial against both of them for these horrific, horrific crimes. One trial against both of them. But Chad doesn't want his trial at the same time as Lori's. And his lawyer arguing today in court for that, for a severance. He wants to do his case separately. Let me do my case over here. Lori, you do your case over there. I don't want you sitting in the courtroom while I'm doing my, while I'm defending myself in front of the jury. It's an interesting development in all of this. Let's take a listen to the arguments.
There was an order that put a stay on Miss Noreen Vallow's case. I am not afforded the opportunity to get any information about the status of the Noreen Vallow Daybell matter, and I don't have information as to what her status is. However, I do know that the stay is still in place, and I've not yet seen a transport order that would transport Miss Vallow Daybell back to Madison or Fremont County. I can only presume at this point, Judge, that there is still a stay. There hasn't been any determination by this court as to what's going to happen in her case. The reason that's concerning, Judge, is that we do have a trial that is set for January. I think it's January 9th of next year, and it's fast approaching. There's a significant amount of preparation that needs to be done, and that preparation is going to include whether or not the cases are severed or whether they're joined together. And I'm not going to get into tactics, but I can assure the court that there is going to be a significant difference between how I prepare in the event the cases are joined as opposed to whether they're separate. In addition, Judge, I noticed that Ms. Blake in her response said that the only issue is Miss Noreen Vallow's mental state. If you look at my pleadings and you look at my motion, Judge, I also made note of the fact that there are some additional charges that arise out of Arizona. Those are charges that Mr. Daybell, at least from if I believe what the press is saying and the prosecutor, Mr. Daybell is not being considered for prosecution in either of those cases, although Miss Noreen Vallow is. My concern is that there's a lot of evidence, Judge. And with this court putting the limitation on my ability to discuss specific facts as to what facts I want to rely on to say this is why it needs to be severed, I put in a blank way, Judge. I said, Judge, I'd like the prosecutor, and under the rule, be required to provide their exhibits that they intend to use and allow the court, if the court needs that, to make an evaluation as to whether there is a significant conflict and whether or not it would have some sort of prejudice in either side, be either Mr. Vallow or Mr. Daybell presenting their case.
I think Mr. Pryor had indicated that the state raised that the only issue dealt with Ms. Vallow Daybell's mental health. That issue wasn't actually raised by the state. Where the burden is on the defendant, the state has simply responded to the brief and to what appeared to be the arguments that would be made by the defense today. In the brief, there were no specific issues outlined in defendant's brief it appeared that there were some things alluded to. One of those appeared to be the stay in Ms. Vallow-Daybell's case. It is the state's position that it is inappropriate to consider the stay in her case as a reason to sever at this juncture. Again, these cases have been on separate tracks, so Mr. Daybell has had the opportunity to be heard and to file motions, while Ms. Vallow-Daybell at times has not had that opportunity yet to be heard on some of those motions, which is part of the state's rationale for asking that any decision in this case be reserved. But regardless, we believe that until a decision on the stay in her case is made, it would be premature to factor that into a decision to sever the cases.
I'll tell you what, if I'm the prosecutor in this case, and whatever John Pryor is asking for, I'm objecting to, because you know, you just have to, because when you're going against an attorney of that nature and who is that good, they've got a master strategy at work in all of this, and if he's asking for something, you don't want to give it to him. I mean, and that's what I'm kind of seeing playing out there in Idaho. Let's bring back in our think tank, Casey Early, Philip Dubé, Brian Weiss still with us. Philip Dubé, this is, I don't know exactly what his strategy is, but I think it would play out something like this. If he severs Lori Vallow-Daybell and she's not in the courtroom, she becomes a much easier target for him, and it's a much cleaner target. You just point the finger at Lori Daybell and her dead brother, Alex Cox. That's who's responsible. I think that's what his end game is here.
Yes, that, and of course he wants to preserve his right to have a speedy trial. You know, the Sixth Amendment to the United States Constitution is not just a footnote. You know, it is an absolute right within the Bill of Rights. The problem here is that Lori's mental incompetency could be of indefinite duration. There is no way to know if and when she will ever be restored to competency. And to be fair,
that presumes that at some point she was competent, but go ahead, continue.
No, fair enough.
You're saying restore. I mean, legally. You look at her life is a mess, an absolute mess.
Fair enough. I don't mean clinically competent. I mean legally competent.
Gotcha.
And legally just means that she doesn't understand the nature of the charges and proceedings, or she cannot rationally assist in her own defense with counsel. So what is Mr. Daybell supposed to do? Just wait around indefinitely on a wing and a prayer that she may one day be restored? There has to be some remedy. Either you go forward without her, or they could always dismiss, and once she's restored, you refile the murder against him and go pick him up. But just to hold him indefinitely, I do think violates that footnote in the Sixth Amendment, the right to a speedy trial.
Well, they did waive some of those rights at some point here, and I think they're happy with the trial date they have. I think the trial date may fall after Doomsday, though, so we'll see how that plays out. Brian Weiss, let me ask you, they've wanted to sever from the beginning, and I think it's a stronger defense case for Chad Daybell if Lori's not there. If I'm the prosecutor, I want them both there, because if you're pointing fingers at each other, I'm just having a party, because that's great. Go ahead, point the finger at each other. You're both guilty.
You know what? Two things. Number one, I didn't hear any of the traditional reasons for so-called mandatory severances, interlocking confessions, what we call Bruton problems, or inconsistent defenses, or a defendant with a prior felony conviction that's admissible against him and not against anybody else. And so Mr. Pryor's problem is this is a question of almost pure judicial discretion. And everybody on this show recognizes that if this case were to reach an appellate court, that decision would be reviewed for what we call abuse of discretion, which is a fancy legal term for, like my nana used to say, go bang your head against the wall. On the other hand, then, I think you could also have a scenario where if these two defendants from the courtroom together, she actually becomes a more vivid target. You don't have to throw up a picture of her on the big screen TV or a PowerPoint. You can just say, look, ladies and gentlemen, 20 inches from where I sit is the embodiment of evil. We're not just mad at her, we're terrified of her.
But if if they're in the room together, you don't think she's going to be batting her little eyelashes and flashing her baby blues over at Chad, who fell head over heels for this super attractive woman who was paying so much attention to him? That's what's in his mind. I think that's the real fear here, Casey, is if these two are in court together, they're going to be tough to kind of separate from each other, because I think at some point Chad's still gonna be enamored with this woman.
I agree. And in this case, we know that it's absolutely strategic and it's the best option for the defense attorney to sever this case. Because if you have both parties and, of course, they're pointing fingers, they both look guilty. So it's definitely good for Mr. Daybell to have no association whatsoever, out of sight, out of mind for the jury. And it is a stronger defense for Mr. Daybell to say, hey, it was all her, and coupled with her mental illness at this time. And also, I agree with Mr. Dubé that we don't know when her competency will be restored. And although speedy has been waived, we can file that afterwards. So no, his case should not linger solely because of Ms. Daybell's incompetency. So let's get this going, and this is a good strategic move.
All right. It's all scheduled for January 2023, folks. All right, still ahead. On the docket tonight in Palm Beach County, Florida, parents living in a luxurious home with their children accused of locking up their 14-year-old adopted child in the garage inside an 8x8 box for up to 18 hours a day. What possible defense could they have? Plus, Chandler Halderson murdered and dismembered his parents in a case you saw on Court TV. At his sentencing, he made a public plea for a lawyer to handle his appeal. Tonight's 13th juror question: do you think some lawyer will actually respond to him and take his case? On the docket today, a shocking story from a very affluent community down in Palm Beach County, Florida. A couple accused of locking their adopted son in an 8x8 box inside their garage. Ryan Hughes from our affiliate WPTV in West Palm Beach, Florida, has the story tonight.
Inside the quiet Egret Landing community in Jupiter, down the tree-lined streets and at the end of a cul-de-sac, police say sits a house of horror.
This was despicable and shouldn't happen.
Inside this garage, Jupiter police say a 14-year-old boy was forced to live in an 8x8-foot box with a mattress, a camera, and a bucket used to go to the bathroom. Meals were brought to him, but he was only allowed out, police say, to attend school.
Everybody's watching out for each other. So I'm really surprised something like this went unnoticed.
But police tell us the teen has been physically abused and confined to the small space since at least 2017. His adopted parents, Tracy and Timothy Furriter, in court, now charged with aggravated child abuse and false imprisonment.
I came outside yesterday and seen all the cops and stuff. But, I didn't think it was something like that. I thought it was maybe they got into a fight.
Jupiter police say they first came to the home after the boy was reported missing by his mom a week and a half ago. 2 days later, officers went back, and once allowed inside, they spotted the small room with a deadbolt on the door. The boy was later found at his school and interviewed. Police executed a search warrant on the camera mounted over the mattress and say thousands of videos were found of the boy locked inside. In court, the couple's attorney argued the teen may have been abused because he has an attachment disorder with his parents.
It makes my heart go out to that boy, and I hope he's able to find the support he needs.
Horrific allegations, but like every case and trial that you see here on Court TV, there's going to be some defense. There's going to be some response to all this, some sort of an explanation for all this. Let's bring back in our think tank, KC Early, Philip Dubé, Brian Weiss. Brian, I'll start with you. What could the defense of this case possibly be?
Well, this has got to work better than the truth, in the words of Otter and Animal House. Look, every state, including Florida, gives parents the right to use reasonable measures to not only discipline their kids, but that also encompasses certain processes by which they can not take them to a mental health expert if they think they've got issues. And so I really think that becomes a question of fact for the jury. But let me tell you what the problem with that is that I actually went and Googled this alleged disorder, and it's a consistent pattern of inhibited, emotionally withdrawn behavior towards adult caregivers manifested by the child minimally responding to comfort when distressed. I'm not sure what that means. I think it means if you're not as emotive as Oprah giving away a car, then maybe you've got an issue. Well, the problem that I have with that is that if you think your kid has that problem, you need to take them to a mental health expert or clinician. You don't lock them up in an 8x8-foot box like he should night.
Casey, you're down in Florida. What could the defense possibly be here? What's the explanation? What do you say to a jury, to a judge?
Well, first, let me just say, I guess we're the testing site for all crazy cases, because apparently this has been happening more frequently here in Florida. But what can you say in this case? I mean, there's so much evidence that's mounting against them. They can't raise the issue of justifiable parental discipline or anything that they can say, this is egregious, this is just harmful. They cause so much harm mentally, physically, emotionally to this child that I'm pretty sure that whatever defense that they come up with, it's not going to be strong enough to overcome a conviction, or they may just come up with a negotiated resolution. But it's a weak defense, if any.
Yeah, they've put together a powerhouse defense team, Philip. So there's gonna be something. We're gonna hear something. What do you think we're gonna hear here?
Well, hopefully they're declaring a conflict and they can get off the case. Otherwise, I'm not laughing at them. I'm laughing at the totality of the circumstances. I think their best bet, and I haven't read the statutes closely, but typically, to be fair to these parents, child abuse charges, especially the ones that carry life, the really serious felony charges are overfiled, okay? It's not to say that they're innocent, but the conduct doesn't necessarily always rise to the level of causing physical harm to the child or endangering the health of the child or somehow physically imperiling the child. Now, it's not to say that the child is not psychologically harmed, you know, or otherwise emotionally scarred by it. You know, granted, I'll give the state that, but there is also a burden of proof as to the physical injuries that have to be shown to have been inflicted on these kids. And if the evidence falls short of that, then maybe the jury can come back or maybe they can settle for lesser offenses. But clearly, they're not going to walk away from this. They're going to be cooling their heels for a number of years.
Brian Weiss, do you think there will be an attack on the victim in this case? You know, that somehow, some way, he may be responsible or the cause of whatever happened here, and not attacking him as a criminal necessarily, but attacking this 14-year-old as someone who, you know, this was what we had to do because of him.
Well, and the last time I heard that defense, it was in an old Law and Order episode. Look, this is not a psychiatric or psychological malady that puts society in danger. If this kid's out on the street, my goodness, he went to school every day. And again, when you look at the alleged nature of this malady, it's not anything that I can see or any other reasonable person could possibly comprehend that would justify this kind of conduct, guys.
All right, the case is continuing. Take a look, folks. It's on the docket. Florida versus the Furters. Arraignment March 24th. So we're at the beginning of all of this. So we'll see where it goes and exactly where the defense is going to go in this one. I think that's the big mystery tonight. When we come back, speaking of children, Chandler Halderson, you saw his trial here on Court TV, was convicted of murdering his parents and then dismembering them. Well, he finally took his mask off. We saw his face in court, and after he was sentenced, he had a little statement inside the courtroom. He's going to do life without parole, but what he said and our reaction and your reaction next.
have to, for this sentence, ensure that the only time Mr. Halderson comes back into the community is to have the privilege of a burial that he denied his parents. And so on counts 1 and 5, per statute, I sentence him to life in prison, and pursuant to section 973.014, sub 1G3, I find that he is not to be eligible for extended supervision during that course.
That's life without parole for Chandler Halderson. He is the man, do you want to call him a man, but the man who murdered his own parents and then dismembered them. You may recall some of the disturbing testimony from that case where the skulls were put in the fireplace. Neighbors thought somebody was barbecuing pork. I mean, this is sick, sick stuff. Well, he actually spoke at his sentencing. It was brief, and he was making a little bit of a request. Take a listen.
Your Honor, I want to take this opportunity to state my intent to appeal my convictions. If there are any lawyers listening and willing to take on my appeal, take a moment to please reach out to me. It's not that I do not have feelings. It's that I was warned to not show them due to the scrutiny of this case. Thank you.
All right. Are there any lawyers listening? Anyone going to come forward? Posted it on social media and asked you if you think anyone's going to respond to his little infomercial looking for a lawyer. We begin with our 13th juror comment of the day coming from Barbara, who says, I believe there's a lawyer out there who will take the case. Perhaps a lawyer wants exposure, coupled with the belief that everyone deserves proper legal representation. Halderson is frightening and psychologically interesting. Let's bring back in our think tank. There are 3 lawyers. Well, actually, I'm a lawyer too, but I'm in retirement status officially, by the way, just so you know. Casey, you were listening. Is that something that lawyers respond to when I'm going to appeal this stuff if anyone's listening?
Yeah, I'm listening as well, and I decline. Oftentimes, if there's a lawyer, especially if they followed this case closely and believe that there was ineffective assistance of counsel or that there was evidence that should not have been admitted, and they, have this strong conviction, then possibly they'll take this case pro bono. But in this case, after watching it fully, it was overwhelming evidence. So I don't know. We'll see who wants to take this call up.
Yeah, I don't think the Innocence Project is coming by to pick this one up. Deborah tonight. I don't think any lawyer would take this case. Everyone knows he's guilty. He should consider himself lucky that he didn't get the death penalty. Philip Dubé, I know everyone is entitled to lawyers. We like that. We'd like the system to work that way. But do you think anyone will respond to this? Anyone will be moved by his words in the courtroom?
Well, first and foremost, Chandler Halderson doesn't have a pot or a window, so he's not going to be able to pay anybody to represent him privately. But ever since 1963, it's Douglas versus California, every criminal defendant on appeal absolutely has the right to court-appointed counsel at taxpayer expense. Now, he doesn't have the right to the counsel of his choosing, but he certainly can file a notice of appeal. I think in Wisconsin, there's a 20-day period from the date of judgment. And then the court has a panel of appellate attorneys from which they will appoint a lawyer to represent him. But typically in these cases, when there's no issue of innocence or sufficiency of the evidence, they typically file a generic brief where they ask the court to look for any issues in the record below. And if the court spots any issues, they will ask the parties to brief those issues. But otherwise, I think this is a hopeless case. He had fantastic counsel. He was represented by Crystal Vera, who is very, very skilled and pedigreed. So, obviously he didn't want to waive time. He wanted a speedy trial. He got a speedy trial, and frankly, he got a speedy conviction. And on another note, I've said it earlier, he is a classic example of why I don't have children.
There you go. Kelly says, oh, yes, there will be some attorney out there looking for 15 minutes of fame. Brian Weiss has had much more than 15 minutes through his career, by the way, folks. A lot of high-profile cases. Appellate stuff is your specialty, Brian. Would something like this move you? Have you ever been moved by something that a defendant has said in the courtroom?
I have. This, however, is not the situation, Vinnie. I would rather walk a police-beaten Beirut than to get within an area code of this guy. Look, I look into this guy's eyes and he reminds me of Michael Myers in Halloween. I mean, hashtag bad seed. And this is the kid who, in the definition of what chutzpah is in the Yiddish dictionary, is the kid that kills his parents and then asks for mercy because he's an orphan. Look, I see this kid and I'm reminded of noted legal sage Merle Haggard's famous song, Mama Tried, with that lyric, I turned 21 in prison doing life without parole. This is this kid. And like one of your listeners just said, he's lucky he's not in a state like, let me pick something at random, Texas, where he stood a pretty good chance of having the state run a cocktail of poison through this kid's veins. Vinny?
All right. Summed up well by Brian Weiss. Okay, see you early. Philip Dubé, Brian Weiss on this Friday night. Thank you so much. Great to see you. Have a safe and a great weekend. When we come back, folks, got a story out of the San Francisco Bay Area. A young woman, 24 years old, has been missing now since the end of January. Her family will join us. We'll get some details in this case. Where is Alexis Gabe?
or visit us online.
In Oakley, California, 24-year-old Alexis Gabe has been missing since the end of January. Her car was found on a dead-end street with the keys in the ignition. Tonight, her family joins us live.
We are asking you this huge favor to please join us. Please help us find our daughter, Alexis.
In tonight's unsolved case file in Indianapolis, Indiana, Jessica Masker went missing in 2013. Today is her birthday, and her family wants and needs your help in finding her, and they will join us live tonight.
She's the biggest piece of a puzzle in our life right now that you can't find.
In Polk County, Florida, a major sting operation headed up by Sheriff Grady Judd. We take a look with our own law enforcement experts.
Let's see, my son's refereeing this youth soccer tournament. I don't have anything to do. I think I'll go across the street and have sex with a prostitute. There's you, an all-American dad.
And in Norfolk, Virginia, a man goes on a Tinder date, lets his date borrow his toothbrush, then she allegedly rips him off. We'll show you how they tracked her down during crime time.
All we can do is generally deny until we receive the specifics from them as to how it was taken, when it was taken, what occurred. Who knows? It could have been gifts. We don't know.
Buckle your seatbelts. This hour of closing arguments starts right now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And coming up in this hour, we are profiling two missing women. One case just happened, another one, it's been years. It's been years, but tonight is a very special night for that family, and that's Jessica Masker, and we'll get to that case in just a little bit. But I want to begin tonight with a case out of the Bay Area, a town called Oakley, California, San Francisco Bay Area. Nice town, great place to live. 24-year-old Alexis Gabe. There she is. There's her picture. Focus on her face, okay? As we show you these images, because you may have some information that could help tonight. She's missing from Oakley, California. She's 24 years old. She was last seen in a town called Antioch, which is right next to Oakley. It's not far away, and is missing under what investigators are calling suspicious circumstances. Let me show you why those circumstances are suspicious. Let's take a look at a map. We have that last known location, which is Bentry Way in Antioch, California, and her car was found abandoned on Trenton Street in Oakley, California. It's about 5 miles apart. It's believed that the keys were in the ignition. The car was just abandoned, but she was also last seen 5 miles apart. So what's the connection between these two locations? Is there any nexus with Alexis? Does she know someone? Is there someone that she is friends with or knew or been talking to or perhaps texting in either one of these locations? Very, very significant. Now, obviously the family is, they're heartbroken, right? They're worried. They are in panic mode to a certain extent, but they've also got working with the community, and they're out there, they're searching, they're looking, they're doing everything they can to bring attention to the case and bring attention to people, obviously in their area of the country, in the San Francisco Bay Area, but we want to take this around the country tonight. I want you to listen to Gwen and Rowan Gabe, Alexis's parents, who spoke publicly. They have a Facebook page where they're posting a lot of information, developments in the case. You can understand. They are lost right now. Let's take a listen.
Hi, we are Alexis Gabe's mom and dad. You probably noticed that we have been very silent in the last 3.5 weeks. Until now, we're still in shock and couldn't believe this is happening to us. Our son, Gwen Marquez, his girlfriend, Morgan, and Morgan's mom, Lori Marshall, have been leading the efforts to find Alexis, and we are truly grateful to them.
I don't think we would be able to do what they did. They have accomplished so much.
We would like to thank the Oakley Police Department for their hard work. I know some of you are probably wondering why they're not sharing any information about the case. We do get updates from them almost every day. We just couldn't share any information at this time because it might jeopardize their investigation.
You can see it, right? I mean, this devastates parents, devastates everyone in the family. So let's put a spotlight on this tonight. Let's bring in our guest. Joining me in Clearwater, Florida, private investigator Mike Peasley, and San Diego, California, retired director of the San Diego Police Department Crime Lab, Jennifer Shen, is with us. And joining us by phone in Oakley, California, is Alexis's brother's girlfriend. You heard her parents talk about her. Morgan Strenfel is with us. She's really been spearheading the searches for Alexis, and she joins us tonight by phone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Morgan, I want to begin with you. First, the family, Alexis's family, how are they holding up? And is there any update in the search for an answer here?
Hi, thanks for having me tonight. Yeah, in terms of how is the family holding up, as well as could be expected, we celebrated, or tried to in some way, Alexis's 24th birthday last night. She's a St. Patrick's baby, so the entire family gathered with her friends last night for a dinner in her honor, and it was incredibly difficult. But we are just trying to remain hopeful and take each day as it comes and do what we can along the way. So.
And have investigators indicated one way or the other that they are following leads, that there is some progress being made in the search for Alexis?
Yes. Our last sit-down meeting with the lead detective and the chief of police at Oakley Police Department was really reassuring. They let us know that, yes, that they are following leads on a daily basis. They're doing any and everything that they can each day. They've dedicated officers specifically to this, like taking people out of other assignments to dedicate more resources and eyes to this case. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot of information in terms of what that looks like because it still is an active and open investigation. So there's a lot that they aren't sharing with us. But we do trust that they are doing everything that they can each day. They've had multiple search teams out with dogs and etc. They really are dedicating all time and resources that they have to this case. So we're very grateful for that.
Morgan, tell us what other searches are taking place. My understanding is that there have been many searches that have been organized, and you're sort of spearheading some of that.
Yeah, so I kind of put together a makeshift search the very first weekend that we knew she was missing. It was just kind of me printing out maps and making grids and then distributing them from the hood of my car. So since then, we have teamed up with the Class Kids Foundation, and we have conducted 3 weekends of searches with them with mapping software, and I think we've had probably close to 700 volunteers in total come out and help us search the areas where we live. It's pretty rural. I mean, there are suburban neighborhoods, but there is also a lot of open space and farmland, so we've been kind of ticking away at covering a lot of that space and area. So it is quite a task, but we are doing everything possible. So
700 volunteers, that speaks volumes about your efforts, the community, and Alexis. I want to bring our other guests into the conversation. Mike Peasley, private investigator out of Clearwater, Florida. Your thoughts tonight about how you go about a search like this. Where do you go? Where are you looking to try to figure out what happened to this young woman?
Well, those searches, I believe, are going to start at the beginning of when she left the residence, who she had contact with. And then when they located that vehicle, I'm sure that they processed that vehicle for any prints or anything. And my question would probably be to the family, obviously, was she on the internet or anything? And was that checked to see if she was in contact with anybody? Not knowing that particular area, obviously, I would hope the media got involved with that real quick. And unfortunately, listening to her sister just now, obviously, since it's an open case, they're not going to share a lot of information until something comes about with this.
Yeah, you've been in those shoes, Mike. So I know you got to keep that stuff. You got to hold it while you're in the midst of all of this. Jennifer Shen, I wanted to ask you about something that Mike mentioned. That car, that is something that needs to be processed. What are you going to go through? What are you going to look for? How difficult is it to find evidence that may lead to some answers in all of this from her car?
Well, first I want to say that the search that's going on is just fantastic. And, people are found all the time by community searches that are organized by someone like you. And it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. So that may turn up clues for you, and that is exceptional. As far as the car goes, that is the last location that we know that she was. So that's going to be really important. If whoever took her or whoever she had the last engagement with left anything in the car, so they would have had to touch it, leave something behind, and they would process every inch of that car to find anything from anyone that didn't belong in her specific, environment. So the car could be very important, but it's going to be even more important to look at her internet history, to look at street cameras, to look at cameras from any surrounding homes or businesses, and really track her car from where she left to where her car was found, to see if there was anyone following her, if there was any other vehicle or person near her and near her vehicle at the time of her disappearance. So that takes a lot of time, and I'm sure they're working on that right now.
Morgan, let me ask you about her car and where it was found. Is there any significance to that location, any connection to Alexis?
So her best friend lives in that neighborhood, about a block away from that particular street. But as far as that street goes, there is no significance. Like, she doesn't know anyone that lives on that street. But we live in a pretty small area, so that route is kind of on the way to her house, her friend's house, and her ex-boyfriend's house. So it's a relevant location in that it's near to her best friend, but nothing like specifically about that court.
But as you said, it's also on the way, and there's on the way home and on the way past her ex-boyfriend's house as well. Let me ask you, Morgan, about the friend and the ex-boyfriend, since there's some level of connection to that area. Have they been involved in the searches as well?
Yes, her best friend has been with us pretty much every single day. She attended the dinner that we had for her birthday last night as well. But no, we haven't had any contact with her ex-boyfriend.
He hasn't come out to search?
That's correct.
Mike Peasley, your thoughts about that?
That's a tough one. I'm sitting here ever since you said the ex-boyfriend lived in the area. Be interesting to find out if there's been any contact at all with him prior to her going missing. And, did they recover the phone in the car, or was the phone found?
Morgan, were they able to retrieve the phone anywhere?
Her phone has not been found, no. And the location she was last known to be is her ex-boyfriend's house. And a search warrant has already been served on that location.
All right. Mike, that's huge.
That's real big. Just that they executed a search warrant at that residence tells us a little bit about maybe an angle that they're going there.
Yeah, you got to convince a judge to get that search warrant, so you're going to need some level of evidence there, a reason to go into that house. Let me ask you, Jennifer Shen, you go into the house, how do you process it?
Well, that's a great question. One of the great things about forensics is that it can place a person in contact with another person or a place if they never should have had any contact. But if you are dealing with an ex-boyfriend's house and she had plenty of opportunities to be in that house, it makes looking for trace evidence or DNA or fingerprints a little more difficult. So then you're really looking for signs of a struggle, something that shows that she was in the house recently. Some even like the length of her hair, if they could find hair, there's something that would tie anything that was in his house to her very recently after they broke up. So it's a little tough since they know each other and they've had interactions within that house, I'm sure.
Morgan, how long ago did they break up? Do we know?
Yeah, from what her friends say, it was around November, late November, but they had seen each other a couple times since they had kind of officially broke it off. And we saw him at the family dinner for Thanksgiving, so recently.
So it was, the nature of the relationship was close enough that he would be there for a holiday. So they had been, I guess, relatively close and now broken up, and he's not helping search for her. Again, I just want to make sure we're clear. Like you're inviting everyone to these searches, right, Morgan? Anyone who wants to volunteer to look, and he is not going out there and looking for her.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, we have a similar case like this, Mike. It wasn't boyfriend-girlfriend, but it was a husband-wife. Maya Miliete out of Chula Vista, California. She went missing. Everyone in the community, every member of the family, everybody, every weekend, just like Morgan is organizing, every weekend they're out searching. Everyone except her husband. Her husband is behind bars tonight, charged with her murder, but they still haven't found Maya. Mike, how difficult do you think it will be if they zero in on a suspect, right? We're not accusing anyone here, but if they zero in on a suspect, will that make it easier to find Alexis?
Well, the cooperation if they do take and make an arrest on that, I'd like to step back just 1 second on that forensics, though, and that search warrant. Depending on how many times they've been together, all the years that I was a detective, I also worked in forensics. So executing a search warrant and looking for DNA of any type or any struggles or hair and stuff like that, if they were seen months ago, that's a good defense for him to say, had nothing to do with this. I certainly think it plays a little bit here right now with the fact that he's not cooperating as far as you would think, X or no X, he's going to be out there trying to help locate her, and it just brings a little bit of suspicion to him. So again, going back to that search warrant, they had to have something to go to the DA's office to even obtain that search warrant. So that'd be real interesting for me to find out how they got the search warrant.
Absolutely. All right, Mike Peasley, Jennifer Shen staying with us. Morgan Strenfeld, thank you so much for joining us. Our thoughts are with you and the family, and I hope you get the answers that you need, and we'll be reaching out to you again.
Thank you so much.
All right, when we come back, folks, you heard Morgan talk about a birthday yesterday for Alexis Gabe. Well, today is Jennifer Masker's birthday. She's been missing since 2013. That's next.
is Jessica Masker's 33rd birthday. And we are all here to celebrate the best way we can. In honor of my daughter, I love you to the moon and back, to infinity and more. I would rather be celebrating today here with you instead of doing this.
That is not how that mom should be celebrating her daughter's birthday, but she has to because her daughter's been missing since 2013. In tonight's Unsolved Case File, we're asking for your help. We're pleading for your help tonight and helping us find Jessica Masker. Here's her story.
The biggest piece of a puzzle in our life right now that you can't find.
The family of Jessica Masker wants answers. The 24-year-old disappeared on April 15th of 2013, just weeks after she had given birth to a son.
Well, my sister had her son prematurely. He was born in February. She went missing in April. She had been doing drugs off and on. She came home from the hospital. She was in an abusive relationship, and she had went to the hospital from being severely beaten.
On that April day, her aunt had given Jessica a ride to a cousin's house, and Jessica's sister says she then decided to leave on foot. She was last seen at the corner of DeQuincy and Washington Streets in Indianapolis.
She had left from there and went to a nearby gas station, and they had her on video surveillance there. She made a phone call while she was there. She had called one of my brothers asking if they could come and get her because she said that some people had came at her wrong.
Her sister says Jessica's boyfriend told them he received a phone call from Jessica that night as well.
And he said that she was at that same gas station when he talked to her when she called him, and she asked for him to come and get her. He said he went to the location and he never seen her or found her.
Family members have passed out flyers in the area where she was last seen, and they are desperate for answers.
We've tried everything. There's not much more that we can do ourselves, and that's why we're asking if the public can help us more. You know, one share on Facebook or TikTok, the news, just share this story on YouTube, anything.
She has the word Lil on the inside of her right wrist and the name Rob on her left wrist. She has the name Travis on the back of her neck and a large vine on her right leg.
It has took such a very hard toll on our family. My daughter didn't run away.
No.
There's foul play.
The family is hoping someone will come forward with information.
If she's not here anymore, please tell us something. We are asking you guys. If she's not here no more, please tell us. My sister deserves a funeral if she's not here. We need closure. Just please tell us something.
All right, folks, we're putting the phone number up on the screen. It'll be up throughout the segment. 317-262-8477. It's the Central Indiana Crime Stoppers number, 317-262-8477. Please, this is her 33rd birthday. Her family is heartbroken. They deserve an answer. Can you please give that to them tonight? Let's bring back in our guest. Still with us, Private Investigator Mike Peasley, retired Director of the San Diego Police Department Crime Lab, Jennifer Shen, and joining us now from Indianapolis, Indiana, two very special guests. Jessica's mother, Cherie Edwards, and Jessica's sister, Ashley, are with us. Thank you, everyone. Cherie and Ashley, you know our thoughts are with you tonight on this on this birthday. And the best present you could get is some sense of an answer. And I hope someone picks up that phone tonight and delivers that. But let me begin. Cherie, tell me a little bit, because somebody knows something, and we know that. Tell me a little bit about how important this is for you as a mom, for your family, what it would mean for everyone if on her birthday someone picked up that phone tonight.
It would be a birthday miracle. A wish come true. Something we've been asking for almost for 9 years.
Blessing. So many times my mom tells me when I come in the door, sometimes she gets upset because she says that I look so much like Jessica, that sometimes when I come in, she thought I was Jessica.
Tell me.
It would mean so.
Go ahead, please.
It would mean so much. So many unanswered prayers. So many questions. So many hugs, kisses.
Just to see her come home again, we would be grateful.
Tell me a little bit about the celebration today, Ashley.
Well, today we let balloons go for Jessica for her birthday because she's not here. We want to celebrate her birthday even though she's not here because she deserves it. So we let a lot of balloons go. We were supposed to let lanterns go as well, but the rain came down, pretty hard. So we couldn't let lanterns go, but I will tell you that when we let those balloons go, only one of them got stuck in a tree, and Jermaine got it out that tree so fast. It was a good thing letting those balloons go, letting know only one got stuck in a tree today.
I want to bring our other guests into the conversation tonight, Mike Peasley and Jen Shen. Jen, your thoughts tonight?
My heart just is breaking for you. It just is breaking, and the balloons are so beautiful. What a wonderful tribute. All I know is that we in law enforcement, we in the crime laboratory, we do these cases because we know they're so important, and we never stop. We never stop. In my experience, in 30 years, every time anything new comes up, we redo all of the work all over again, just in case there might be something new that we can find that could help. So I hope you keep up the remembrance, keep up the hope, and then someday you're going to get your answer. And my heart hurts for you so much. It really does.
We definitely do try to keep up on everything. I can say my sister Christina, she's the strongest out of all of us. She keeps it together for us.
Mike Peasley, you're a private investigator. You've also, been part of law enforcement. Your thoughts tonight on, it was April 15th, 2013, and here we are in 2022.
Yeah, it's a shame, and my thoughts and prayers go to you and your family. Interesting about this surveillance camera at that gas station. We're talking, 2013. If that gas station, and supposedly the area wasn't that good, from information that I've read and stuff, there was a lot of drugs and stuff like that in the area. I would think with heavy activity and crime, you would think that most of the area, people would have cameras around there. I'm finding this a little bit interesting. The ex, as far as, was he still in communication with Jessica after the baby was born?
Yes, he was.
And has he done anything to help with this at all, as far as trying to? No. None, huh? That's
Okay.
interesting too.
if I must say, the call I got from our son the next day, because he thought that Jessica would call me, which Jesse, when he was abusive, she wouldn't call, and he wouldn't let her call.
Okay, so
But
for your question,
the question, he called asking if we had heard from Jessica. And I told him, no, I made a missing persons report. She said that she was going to call him. And he said, she called me. I'm going to go look for her. He never called back. He used to call nonstop when my daughter was home. And she could not use the bathroom. Anything, social media. He would not let up from calling. And after that, he only called one time. Who does that? And that was the one thing that I told my husband and the detectives. Why do you call like that? And
So
then you just call one time and you don't call back?
what Mom is trying to say is that he would call when she wasn't around, but after she was reported missing, he never called and she was not with him. So for your answer, no, after she went missing, he did not call. And he would call anytime that she was not with him. He was obsessive and he would call all the time, constantly.
Well, we're out of time for tonight. Cherie and Ashley, you are amazing advocates, and you continue to be so strong. Our thoughts are with you, and I hope you get your answer very, very soon. I hope tonight's the night that someone picks up that phone. Mike Peasley.
And
go ahead, please do.
Sorry, I just want to say before we do get off that, Jessica, if you can see this, we love you so much. We will never give up hope.
Never.
You are amazing. You're beautiful. Today's your birthday. Happy birthday. We love you so much. We'll never give up.
Happy birthday, baby.
Happy birthday, Jessica.
God bless you both. We'll be back.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
officially licensed everything.
It is crime time here on Closing Arguments. Let's bring in tonight's guests. Joining me, retired sergeant for the Nashville Police Department, Melissa Pinkleton. Melissa has 14 years of experience in law enforcement. She joined the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department in 1999. She's worked numerous undercover operations, was part of a specialized police flex unit, and targeted the most dangerous criminals in the area. And she was awarded countless Officer of the Month awards, several Chief Coin of Excellence awards, and 6 Commendation for Service awards. Also with us, retired Deputy Inspector from the New York Police Department, Corey Pegues. Corey's been in law enforcement for 21 years. He spent 18 years as a combat medic with the U.S. Army and New York National Guard. He's also an author of the book, Once a Cop. Great to have you both here, Corey and Melissa, and we're going to begin tonight. A lot of our viewers are very familiar with this sheriff down in Polk County, Florida. Big sting operation, 108 arrested in a human trafficking sting.
It all started with Operation March Sadness 2. Now, we don't think basketball should be able to dominate March by itself, so we have our own bracket, but instead of brackets of winners, we have brackets of losers. But let's start with Mr. Finley. He traveled to our undercover location thinking he was going to engage a very young child for sex. Newsflash, it wasn't a very young child, it was a group of detectives. I'm going to tell you about a trafficker. It's not often we arrest traffickers at the undercover site, but we did. Let me introduce you to Tiffany Nash. Why she's not been busy committing crime, because she has 61 previous criminal charges, 41 of them felonies and 20 as misdemeanors. She's the manager of the Kentucky Fried Chicken in Orlando. Now, I just don't believe I'd want any finger-licking good chicken that she touched. Then we have Daniel Peters, 66 years old. He thought he was coming for a girlfriend experience. Oh, can I show you the other picture of Daniel Peters? This is the Honorable Daniel Peters, who is a retired judge from Cook County, Illinois. He said, quote, "I've been on the other side of this." Well, I'd like to ask him today, so which side do you like best? He requested an attorney. Well, Judge, you need an attorney. You got problems. And then there's James Compton. He's 42. He's a graphic designer. He wanted to have all kinds of sex, and he wouldn't be particularly interested, except for the fact his 17-year-old son was refereeing a youth soccer game across the street. Hey, I guess he just got tired, right? Let's see, my son's refereeing this youth soccer tournament. I don't have anything to do. I think I'll go across the street and have sex with a prostitute. There's you, an all-American dad.
Sheriff Grady Judd, what do you think of this sheriff and his operation? Melissa Pinkleton, I'll go to you first.
I love this sheriff. I love his operation. I have seen a plethora of his news conferences, and he's the one that you want to work for. You know, this profession is dying. And what I mean by that, the police profession is dying because you have a lot of people who just don't want to do the job anymore because of the negativity. And he is the kind of leader that makes you go, no, I still want to be the police. I want to work for someone like that, because he holds these criminals accountable. He backs up his boys and girls when they do right. And he gets up there and he puts it out there for everybody. I think he's amazing. And I think he uses different forums for different reasons. He had a sit-down forum where he talked with another sheriff from another department on a case that they had worked together with in catching a murderer. It was a separate case. But the point is he takes the opportunity to go through on these different forums. And know what that does is that builds a relationship with the community. And this is the time now where the community and the police need to join back together. And he's so good at that. I really think he's great at community building and communicating things. And I love him. I would work for him tomorrow.
Corey Pegues, your thoughts of Sheriff Grady Judd and his operation down there in Polk County, Florida?
Hey, Vinny, this is such a welcome. Like, everybody's, so serious with police, and this guy was so refreshing. He's not reading the script at time, place, occurrence, the person did this, that, or the other. He added a little humor to the situation, but he got the bad guy or the bad girl off the street. I love this guy.
All right, Melissa Pinkleton, Corey Pegues staying with us. When we come back, we've got more Crime Time. Don't go away, folks.
Norfolk police actually got the call about this situation back in September of 2020. Now it's playing out in the Norfolk courthouse.
Swiping left or swiping right, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into.
A Tinder date. They met at his apartment, according to a search warrant. They hung out and drank beer. He told authorities she asked to use a toothbrush. It states he went to bed. She slept on the couch. But in the morning, records indicate that he called police when $2,000 was missing, along with 2 Rolex watches worth $2,800 and a Louis Vuitton duffel bag. Police took DNA from the toothbrush that the suspect allegedly used. They took out a warrant for 23-year-old Shaunti Robinson. She was arrested in October. The News 3 I-team spoke with her attorney.
If you are caught with a toothbrush and you leave it behind and you've asked for one, it's not a very smart way if you're actually planning on stealing something, because you're actually leaving evidence behind if you did anything improper. But at this point, we don't know if she did anything improper. It's an accusation, and we have to see where it takes us.
People we spoke to say online dating can be dangerous.
If a girl is, a little bit more, as we say, thirsty, to get to know you or get to, a certain situation, it's probably something wrong, you know what I mean? And you just got to pay attention to those signs and, let your instincts take you, because if you don't, then you'll end up a victim.
Right now, Robinson is out on bond. She was previously arrested for grand larceny and possession of burglary tools and other cases, according to records. Her lawyer says at this point they plan to plead not guilty as they are waiting to learn more about the evidence of the case from prosecutors.
All we can do is generally deny until we receive the specifics from them as to how it was taken, when it was taken, what occurred, who knows, it could have been gifts, we don't know. So we're at a point now where we're waiting to receive that information.
The next court appearance is scheduled for May 19th. In Norfolk, Margaret Kavanaugh, News 3.
Fascinating case, but it's just a theft case. Why do you think they use the DNA from the toothbrush versus just some sort of digital footprint from the swipes? I mean, that's how they got on that date. Corey Pegues, your thoughts tonight?
Well, so DNA is the blessing and the curse for me. The Innocence Project, we all know about Innocence Project. It has exonerated a lot of people that has been innocently put in jail. Like, this case is a little tricky because I would like to see the receipts for the roller, these high-end items, because she used a toothbrush, but did he really own the items? Can we prove that this person owned the items? Because this could also be a setup. You don't know. That's where the curse is with the DNA. Did he just call the police and say, like maybe she didn't go for his advances, and then he said, listen, this woman came over and she took this stuff from me. So I'm in a gray area with this, Vinny.
Yeah. Melissa, when I first heard the story, I was like, well, if they're dating on Tinder, can't you kind of track her down through that?
Yeah, I'm going to respectfully disagree with Corey. I have mad love for you, Corey, but if she's over there using a toothbrush, she's not over there just cuddling. So she's not saying that she's guilty of it, that she did it, but the reason they're using DNA is because it's the gold standard of evidence, right? Nobody else's DNA is like anybody else's DNA. However, go ahead and put that together with the GPS, because I guarantee, especially since they met on Tinder, which is usually an app. I don't know. I am not that thirsty personally because I'm married, but I'm sure she had her phone with her. I'm sure there's a GPS footprint, and put it together with that and build a case from there. But I don't know. I think there might have been more going on than just a random date at his place. And
gotcha. Melissa Pingleton, not thirsty on this Friday night. Here we go. Melissa, thank you so much. Corey Pegues, great to have you as well. We'll see you again real soon, folks. Don't go away, because I'm going to need more of your help right after this.
3-4.
Don't forget, Monday morning right here on Court TV, continuing coverage of the NBA star murder trial. Billy Ray Turner on trial for the murder of Lorenzen Wright. Ted Rollins will have your coverage first thing in the morning. Before we go, I have a picture of a missing child I need to share with you. This is Litzy Albino, missing since February 20th of this year from Orange, California, 15 years old. If you see Litzy, please pick up the phone, call 911. 1-800-THE-LOST, as always, or you can call the Orange County Sheriff's Office. So phone number's on the screen. You can always call 911, folks. That's it for now. I'm Vinnie Politan. Have a great weekend, and please don't forget to hug the kids.